Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show with your hosts, Joey and Holly Baird.
It is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show on 860 AM WNOV and W293CX 106.5. The WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, your destination for all things gardening. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and a whole lot more. Well, let's go to the IVOrganics.com hotline and bring in our next guest and our good friend.
As one of the country's most recognized and trusted personalities in gardening and green living, that passion for living a greener life is evident to anyone who has seen Growing a Greener World, which you can see on the Create channel and PBS while it's in its 8th season. Joe Lam'l is the executive producer and host. He is also an author, home gardener, and advocate for all things green. Welcome to the program, Joe.
Hey, Holly. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm out in Mesa, Arizona today, and it's sunny and hot, but it's nice.
Well, I'm glad you're able to fly into Phoenix or Mesa there. I know there was some issues with some aircraft not being able to fly because it's too warm.
I was wondering.
For people who are scoring at home or by themselves, Joe was the one that called in on our second show back in March, unannounced and unplanned, to congratulate us on
that was the first show.
No, it was first or second show. Second show. And to congratulate us on the program. And, Joe, you've got like 1,014 things going on every hour, and for you to call in and congratulate us and listen to the show means a whole lot, and we appreciate that.
Well, listen, it was just an honor and a pleasure for me to do that, and I fully support what you guys are doing. I know how hard you've worked to get this show going, and I wanted to support you in any way I can, and I will continue to do that.
Well, we appreciate that. You talk to a lot of gardeners through your everyday activities, and in your opinion, Joe, what is the biggest mistake gardeners make, no matter what time of year it is?
Well, I think they either don't start because they're afraid to make a mistake. Well, let's just say that, because we just always want to do it right. But with gardening, it can be a little intimidating to get started, and I think people just wait too long and try to figure it out before they really get their hands dirty. And to me, the best thing you can do and the best way to learn is to just stick a plant in the ground, even if you have no idea what you're doing, but then you just observe what happens. And then you try to figure out how to fix it based on your observations. So I'd say people don't start soon enough, or the opposite. I will say this: either they get overzealous and they jump in with both feet and they get a little too ambitious, and then they find that things are taking off and they are successful. It's not as hard as they thought, and then it becomes a little bit overwhelming. So I guess to sum that up, I would want people to start rather than procrastinate, but then just kind of ease into it potentially. Don't necessarily dive in with both feet right away.
Well, and Shauna Coronado was on the program a couple of months ago, and she said you're not a gardener unless you've killed about 1,000 plants. So I think we're all qualified for that. And you started as a young child. You jammed a twig in the ground and it rooted, and that's how you learned.
Well, that's a good example, Joey. That's exactly how I learned. I didn't know. In fact, I just jammed it in just because I didn't want to be caught at the moment, not thinking that broken branch was going to root. But that's the thing about plants. They're so forgiving that I don't think people give plants enough credit for the fact that they genetically want to survive, and they'll do whatever they need to try to make that happen. So for me, that's what happened with that broken branch and stuck it in the ground. So good example.
So what is the biggest challenge you face being what people may label as being a professional gardener?
Well, I think they think that I just have it all figured out, and I've got this great looking garden all the time, and I've got all those problems figured out. And you know what? The more I garden, the more I figure it out. But I am fond of saying, no matter how much you know, there's always more to learn. And I think that especially applies to gardening. And what I love about being a long-time passionate gardener, both personally and professionally, is that I'm learning something new every day. And if I'm not learning something new every day, I'm disappointed. So for people that wonder about, where I am in this world of gardening and with my experience, I would say that, I know a lot more than the beginning gardener, but I hope there's a lot more for me to learn before I, plant my last plant.
And you taught us something that was we kind of knew, but we wanted to reassure that it's okay to say I don't know. You're not, the 8 plus 8 in mathematics is always 16, right. But that's not always true in gardening. Not always XYZ equals result.
That's a great point. It's not always one and only one answer too. There's multiple solutions sometimes with gardening, and And I could throw out an answer and probably be right, but I don't think there's anything with saying, look, I'm not sure about that, because we all need to learn from each other. I think I have a lot to offer, but I also get a lot of information from other gardeners. You're a great example of that. So I think for any gardener to come off acting like they know it all is not the way to present yourself, because I just don't think anybody knows it all with gardening.
Well, I'll ask you your opinion on this, because there might be about 4 or 5 different answers. What is a good, low-cost, environmentally friendly way to maintain your lawn? I mean, there's a lot of weed and feed and all this chemical stuff. What's a good way of organically maintaining a lawn that you can be proud of and have a vegetable garden in the backyard?
You know what? I think my best organic control with my lawn is to cut it high. So I cut it at the top end of its preferred growing range. For example, I have a cool season grass. I grow fescue, and I cut it at 4 inches high. And that's probably twice as high as people would think looks good, but I got to tell you, I have the most beautiful lush green lawn, and I don't have to apply any chemicals to it. It's very low in weeds, because the taller grass shades out the weeds, so that helps promote the grass growth. And the more the grass is growing above ground, the deeper the roots, and the deeper the roots, the more drought tolerant it is. So, you just create this beautiful self-sustaining lawn just by the fact that you're not cutting it as often or as severely each time. So
correct me if I'm wrong. By cutting it high, you're allowing the grass to be taller, obviously, but you're allowing more insects, beneficial and maybe enemies, to live in that and kind of have more of a balanced environment.
Well, that's a very good point, because when I cut it that high, the clover in my grass, which I do not mind at all, has a chance to live there, and it's a legume, so it's gonna add nitrogen to my soil, and then the honeybees are going to come along and pollinate the clover flowers. They love that, and so I don't do much else. Now, I will say once or twice a year I go over it with some orgonite, which is an organic nitrogen source, and that helps build the soil health and the lawn health as well. But that's an optional thing. I do it, and I think it really improves overall the health of my lawn by building up the overall vigor and what's going on in the soil. But I would not do that with a synthetic chemical. I just don't think that helps to build the long-term health of your lawn.
Now, with your show, Growing a Greener World, that can be found on PBS and the Create channel, it's syndicated, I think, in 30-some-odd countries, something like that?
Yeah, 30-something, yes.
And
so when people watch, they may not realize the behind the scenes, or maybe they do realize the behind the scenes. How much time is actually put into one of your weekly episodes?
4 days vacation by the time we get there and film and come home. Weeks getting ready to go out on the shoot. And then when we come back, it's at least 10 days and post-production, putting the show together with our writers and our editors. So whatever that adds up to, it's probably 3 weeks, maybe a month of work involved to really get the show from conception to completion.
For a 26-minute episode, about 3 weeks to a month.
Yeah, right, for sure. Definitely 3 weeks.
And you have if people can't miss it on PBS or the Create channel, they can certainly watch it on growinggreenerworld.com. You have all the episodes of all 7 seasons there. That's right.
And just back to that point, for that question for a second, how long it takes. It's not like we think of an idea for a show and then the next week we're out shooting it. I mean, we start thinking about these ideas a year in advance or longer, and we put them into a virtual inbox, and our team sits down once a year or twice a year, and we decide, what direction we're going to go the following year, and then we start developing those shows. So really, it's probably even longer than 3 to 4 weeks when you really think about how much work goes into planning and creating and producing the show.
And you've got Teresa Lowe, you got your camera guys, which it's a very small group. It's not like you have a bus of production people. It's just 4 or 5 people, is it not?
That's exactly right. When we pull up on location, a lot of times the people will come out and say, well, when's the rest of the crew going to get here? Or when's the truck going to get here, with all the equipment on it? And we travel heavy, We're a lean, mean team, but we're very, very efficient. And we have to be, because we don't have $1 million budget to do what we do. So we have to all wear a lot of hats and figure out how to do what we do with a small crew and with the amount of arms and legs that we have to manage all the equipment. So it's pretty incredible. We are quite the sight when we go to an airport and there's 3 people and about 18 large containers of equipment, but we've got a real system figured out. So thank God for technology that enables us to reduce the size of all the stuff that we use to shoot in really high quality.
Before we let you go, I do want to ask you, what has been your biggest failure in the last year? Because, everybody, we talked about this earlier. You're not a gardener unless you've at least failed at something. What has been your biggest challenge the last year?
With gardening, you mean?
Yeah. What have you failed at something? What is a plant that you just, it's your nemesis? You're like, I just can't grow this, but I'm going to keep trying.
Squash. And the reason and it's not that I can't grow the squash. It's the squash vine borer and the squash bugs. I'm not out in my garden every day, and if you don't catch the squash vine borer at the moth or the egg laying stage, and next thing you know, the borer is in the plant, and then it's too late. And for the trouble that creates for me and the amount of space that it takes up in the garden, I don't grow. I did it this year again, thinking I'd dodge a bullet, and I didn't. And I had squash vine borer, but you know what? It's okay, because I take videos of that and I take pictures of it, and then I tell everybody else what to look for and how to look out for it and how to catch it before it gets to become a problem. So although it was a mistake for me, I don't even look at it as a mistake. I look at it as an opportunity to teach people what to expect and how to deal with it.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, we greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day there in Arizona to speak with us. For people who want to find more about you and Growing a Greener World, where again can we all go and visit?
Go to joegardner.com. That's my new website with a podcast, and I think it's really fresh and a lot of great information. We just launched last week. I think people will be very impressed with that. We got some good videos, and just check it out, joegardner.com.
Can we still get the free ebook through that website?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. That's where you go to get them.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you very much for calling in and being with us and sharing some of your garden knowledge, not only with Holly and myself, but our listeners as well.
It is my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Joey and Holly.
You're very welcome. Joe. If you're in the Milwaukee or surrounding areas, just tune your radio to 860 AM or FM 106.5. You can also find links on our Facebook pages, The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener and Home Canning. Our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, click on the radio tab at the top of the page, then click on the Listen Live button, and you'll have immediately access to our live program. Mobile devices work very well also. Go to your app store and download for free the TuneIn app or the Simple Radio app. Then search WNOV 860, save it to your favorites, and you can have access to our radio show live wherever you're at in the world. Our radio program will also have podcast replay under the radio tab several days following the live broadcast. You can find all of these links in the show notes below. Our show airs 9 to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday, March through the end of October. And we want to thank our sponsors, because without them, this would not be anywhere possible. You can find all of their links under the radio tab on our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.